And ladies and gentlemen, it is time for episode number 9 of the PWBA Podcast. And for the first time since we have begun this show, it is live on Bowl TV. So appreciate everyone who will be tuning in, who has already been tuned in, waiting for, of course, the broadcast to begin here at 1 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. My name is Emil Williams Jr., of course, joined as always by the man, the myth, the legend, Aaron A. Ron Smith. Aaron, another week. Got a couple of shows already planned, of course. But how you feeling and what's pop?
Man, I'm excited. The whole idea of going live for this, definitely a new excitement for me, probably a new excitement for you, definitely excitement for the fans. So, I was not gonna lie, I was prepping very, very early, like way too early for this. So
you can never prep way too early. That's true. Impossible.
This is live stream rule 101. But yeah, so got the table set up, tried a few different things out. So I'm excited. I'm ready to mess around with some of the new features we have on here. So we're going to try work a few videos in as well before we get to our special guest for the day. So everything's great here. Hope all is well in Chicagoland.
It is. It is. That was a very nice day yesterday. Just taking a look around. I actually had to make an essential run. So I did leave the vicinity, leave the premises for a minute. But, and of course now, it's raining. It's been raining since last night. It's still raining. And hopefully that won't last too long. So we can get back to some sunshine. I feel like rain is going on across the country. So, but it's about that time, man. It's almost May. That means, the sun should be out. And obviously we should not be where we are currently as well, as many of our PWA players have mentioned this week in regards to competition. And speaking of that, and speaking of players, we've got a special guest today for episode number 9. And for the proper introduction, we will start with an awesome shot and an awesome clip that Aaron will set us up.
All right. This will be from the Go Bowling PWBA Regional Showdown from last year in Orlando. So definitely a fun made-for-TV event. So let's get the winning shot from our guest today. Julia Bond, please let it work, please let it work, please let it work. And away we go. Dave Ryan, take us away.
Jasmine Gigi makes an impressive going down the stretch to make things interesting for a few moments there. Needed that last
CBS break. Sports Network.
And Julia
for the win.
Needs 5. We'll get 10.
Oh, that's nice.
It's a classic Dave Ryan, too. Needs 5, has 10.
Great bowling, Julia Bond from Aurora, Illinois, our top seed, will get the win at the PWBA Regional Showdown here in Orlando.
What a rundown by Dave there.
Indeed it is. Julia Bond, 3-time regional champion, of course, on the PWBA Tour, as you just saw, the Go Bowling Regional Showdown champion, 4-time Team USA member, won a national title at Nebraska, a couple state titles in Illinois, U.S. Amateur champion. I mean, we literally could go on and on and on, but Julia Bond, please, thank you. Welcome to the PWBA Podcast. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Aaron and Emil. It's an honor.
It's certainly our pleasure, and we appreciate you. I'm just going to ask just briefly, when you saw that clip and your mind went back to that show, first thing that came to mind?
The first thing that came to my mind was it was just so much fun to be in that position and to have a lot of people there for me, like William, was really close to me, was there. My dad was there. Alex, William's son, really great friend of mine. Just to have the support that I had there really made it very, very special for me.
Indeed, and I think I didn't have a special spot for Will, but at some point I figured he would come up in this conversation, just based on obviously your relationship with him, my relationship with him as well. So, but just briefly from a coaching perspective, and in our next topic we'll get into some quarantine thoughts, but what's been the rise kind of Julia Bond? How have you become this player that you have become?
Oh, that's a great question.
That's what we do here.
The hard-hitting one. Gosh, I mean, I feel like my story doesn't start as early as other people's stories start. I mean, I was 11, which isn't terribly late, but I think it's, again, later than most people start. And, like other, kids my age, I thought bowling was just, something fun to do, something you did at parties. But my dad, he had some friends that wanted to join a league, and if he's going to do something, he's going to do it the best that he can. And so we got his own bowling balls and shoes, and we just kind of went out there and like practiced together. And just from the very beginning, something about bowling, it just made sense. And I loved it, and it's something that I've just been striving to want to get better at, since I was 11. And I think I've been very fortunate to meet the right people at the right time to help me be a better person and be a better bowler and, project myself forward. And I think I've just, been on the very fortunate side of things.
All right, excellent. That was actually one of our questions down the road, so we already got one checked off right there. I like that. But yeah, obviously, for us, we got to kind of first hear the name Julia Bond at Junior Gold in 2013. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the show. But for right now, as far as everyone's trying to find ways to keep busy. We're doing cool things like the podcast here. So, what have been some of kind of your favorite new activities in the past month or two? Just trying to stay busy here during quarantine.
I think my favorite activity has been going on walks with my dog. He's sleeping right next to me, without a care in the world. But because he's actually on the older side. He turns 14 this September. And so to be able to spend more time with him, I think has been really special. January, he actually was having some health problems, and I was honestly convinced that he wasn't, going to make it. And so to have him here with me, especially during a time like this, has been really special. And, my parents, they still have been continuing going to work. And so, I'm here, by myself most of the time, but, to have him here with me and to be able to go on walks and, get some exercise and some fresh air, I think has been definitely my favorite, my bright spot, during this whole time. And then something new that I've kind of gotten into is that my boyfriend's mom, she loves doing Easter baskets. So every year I get a really cool Easter basket from her. And inside it, I've never seen this before. And the best way I can describe it is paint by number, but with rhinestones. Mm-hmm. And so it makes a picture, and I actually have it here with me because I'm actually at my work table. And so it's this rhinestone thing. And
that's dope.
I know, right? But if you look closer at it, it's these just little tiny stones. And I'm really great at focusing on a single thing for hours at a time. So this was in my wheelhouse of activities to do. And so, but I think overall, my favorite activities, I think, are kind of revolving around more artistic things. I've gotten really into movies. I mean, I've always liked movies, but now I can kind of binge watch a lot at the same time and kind of discover either new actors or just, different genres of movies. And so reading is another one, so I think I kind of turned more towards the arts in the times that we're going through.
Was that The Little Mermaid?
It was.
Which is
my favorite Disney movie. So my boyfriend's mom knows me very well at this point. So she picked a choice one for me to do.
I used to rock with The Little Mermaid. Very, very, that was my joint for a while.
Timeless.
We're going to have karaoke with Emil after this as well.
This could be a thing.
Disney.
Yeah. Did you see the Disney karaoke on ABC? That was a thing a couple nights ago. Oh, you missed it. It was great. They had all these people do Zoom karaoke things. It was great. You missed out. It was really good.
The funny thing about me is that I can recall watching all these old classic Disney movies in my childhood, but I don't really watch them as an adult. But now that I have a son, I feel that cycle is going to kind of pick up again because kids like cartoons and animated stuff. So that's kind of where I am in life. I'm getting back into it.
Well, there you go. All right. Obviously, a lot of folks unable to get to the bowling center over these past month or two. So as far as, anything you're doing at home to try and stay kind of bowling sharp or as bowling sharp as possible. I know we're starting to, the news is starting to trickle in. There's, obviously a lot of news in Georgia this past week, kind of bowling centers opening up again. But for you, how have you kind of been trying to stay as sharp as possible for what's hopefully a tour season coming up?
There's been a couple things that I've been trying to do at home. Recently, I purchased an orb, which is a really simple bowling tool. Helps you kind of work on your release. It's by the name of it, it's very circular. So when you throw it at hopefully a sturdy surface, it's supposed to roll back towards you, and that's how you can kind of tell if you're getting your hands in the right spot, getting the right rotation on it. And so I've been trying to work on that. It's obviously not the same as putting your hand in a bowling ball, but I think a lot of us are doing the best that we can, given the resources. Another thing that I've been doing that is something that I did before, but doing it more now, is really doing some visualization. And it was something that we learned at camp that I thought was really, really cool. It's something that a lot of baseball pitchers actually do, because it works out really well for them. Is that when you see TV broadcasts, it's usually it's from behind the pitcher. And so something that they'll do is that they'll, have it all set up, and they'll basically go through their routine and their motion in time with the video. And so, bowling works, I think, the same way pretty well, is that the videos that we take from ourselves, they're from the back, and you can basically set yourself up the same way that you would and kind of go through the same timing. I know the sliding, isn't quite there, either on a hardwood, surface or a carpet, whatever it may be. But I think it's really helped me just kind of ease back into those moments and kind of remember, where I was, what it felt like, and to do it in time with the video, so I'm not just stuck in my head. I know it can be difficult for people to imagine just things in their head, so it's nice to physically see a video, but also physically go through the motions. And so that's what I've been doing. But I know other people have really stepped up their at-home game, like Verity Crawley. If you guys haven't seen her stuff, you guys should really check it out. She's kind of set up this pillow runway up against her door where she's throwing shots. Other people are kind of throwing bowling balls into couches, which, really great idea. I know my mom wouldn't appreciate it. I'm at home with my parents, so, whatever you can get away with, I totally encourage it. So again, I think a lot of people are becoming very, very creative with their situations, and it's really cool to see how the bowling community is, what they're doing and how they're getting through it.
Quick tangent from that. Julia, would you trust Emil and I to build a at-home lane for you with wooden tools and all that? Would you trust us to do that?
I mean, I would.
Wow.
You never know until you try. You guys could be master carpenters, and we don't know until now. So, I try it.
We appreciate that confidence.
Yeah, I would say
the
no.
confidence there. As a warning, I would not recommend that at all.
I just want to make a quick note. Thanks to everyone, obviously, in the chat, live on Bowl TV. We will try to get to your questions and at various times throughout the broadcast. So, Coach Denny, I do see your question, and we will get to that in 1 second. Julia, you are perfect in regional competition. You have won each title or each event that you have entered in regional competition, and obviously the regional showdown as well. Did you expect that, anticipate that type of success so early on, and why do you feel you're so tough in that format?
If you told me at the beginning that I was going to have 3 regional titles, I would have been like, oh, okay, I'll take it. To have that type of success, not necessarily. I expected to perform well. I think at this point, a lot of us, go into tournaments, we have our expectations, to always do our best whenever we go out to events. And so I expected to at least put my best foot forward and to gain as much experience as possible. But to have, 3 regional titles plus the regional showdown, I think was more than I could ever ask for. And I guess the reason why I like the way you worded that question, honestly, why do you think you're so tough? Because that's something that I've never thought myself as, but I think it might just come down to experience. What's really cool about these regionals, and I love the way our tournament director describes it, Tennille Milligan, is that these regionals are a way for people to get their feet wet. Maybe you're unsure if you want to join the PWBA, you're not quite sure how you're going to measure up. I think the regionals are a really good opportunity to just put yourself in those situations and that experience so you can gain the confidence to join the tour. And I think it's really benefited me in that way. I think when I've made it to the step ladder, when you're in that situation enough times, you get better at, the things that you need to focus on and like what's important and what's not important in this moment. And I think I've been in that situation enough times. I think that's maybe why I think I've toughened that situation, because I've been in that situation. And so hopefully when I get into the spot, competing for my first national title, I've been in a similar situation that hopefully, my time will come. And I think the regionals have really, really benefited me that way.
And obviously you mentioned, wanting to see that success translate to the national tour. And I think everyone definitely expects that based off just, your great history already as a young star on tour and what's to come. But, for that first season on tour, kind of what were your expectations and, what were some of your favorite moments kind of going out for the first time? Obviously getting to start in Lincoln was probably pretty cool, but, just kind of recap your 2020 season.
Mm-hmm.
Or 2019 season, sorry.
Oh, great.
Hopefully 2020 season later.
I think expectations is a really good keyword. I think that was something that I really had to think about, because I actually did 5 years at Lincoln. So I had my 4 years of eligibility, and then I was finishing up just, school my 5th year. And so trying to balance school, but also try to prepare for the tour, there was a balance to it. And I had to realize that I might not be as prepared as I want to be, compared to as if I've already graduated, went home, maybe had time to work with William, my coach, and kind of get my arsenals and my, my tools together. So I did the best that I could, but I also had to be real with myself that I might not, come out guns a-blazing the way that, I think every rookie wants to be. And so I think my goals were mostly to get that experience, to learn as much as possible, from the women that have been doing this for so long, and just kind of, again, get my feet wet, I think is a really good term. And so when my second season came up, and whatever success came my way during my first year, I was, just going to take it and run with it and be very grateful, for any opportunities that came up. But I think it was mostly just kind of wanting to be a sponge and, learn as much as I could. And then hopefully, my second go around, be able to take those tools, and implement them. So my goals this year are more concrete and I think a little bit more solid. Like, for example, one of my goals is to make every round of 32. Last year, I think there was only a handful that I missed, which was to be expected. And I think that, that's going to happen. You can't make every cut, but I think going to my second year, I want to see if I can make it. You can't win a national title if you don't make that first cut to 32.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so I thought that was kind of a more solid, this, kind of taking a step, more of a stronger step towards, my ultimate goal of winning a national title. And I think maybe a little less concrete, but more, this next goal is I wanted to reflect more on my performances. When I bowl, I write down my thoughts in a journal, like my alignments, bowling balls that I'm using, stuff like that. But I never really thought about those things after the fact. And that's something that I really want to work on, is that when I'm done bowling, how did I feel, after the fact? What could I have done differently, better, X, Y, Z, anything like that. I just want to have more reflection in my game.
Now, you use the word sponge as an analogy there, but as a young player, who did you soak up information from? Who was kind of the seasoned vet out there who you kind of went to or watched a little more intently being out there every week?
I think as far as physical game goes, I would try to look at Shannon O'Keefe, whenever we were nearby as much as I could. Our games aren't super similar, but I think we tend to play at least similar lines or be in the same part of the lane. So I think Shannon is a good person for me to look at. And as far as mental game goes, I would say Kelly Kulick for sure. Every time I see her, she just seems just so solid, and that, nothing's like bothering her. Like, she kind of has those blinders on and she's just so committed to what she's doing in that moment. And I think that's something that I want to get better at. And again, for example, team trials this January, when we were still bowling, Kelly completely like ran everybody over this year at team trials. Like she basically won every block. Like she set the new record for the lowest score that you could have at team trials. And man, she just made it look so easy. And, that type of, that's just what I strive to be, as far as physical game goes, be as solid as Shannon, but mentally, just kind of go out there and run everybody over like Kelly does.
Makes a lot of sense, and obviously two great individuals to pay attention to. So you obviously spent a lot of time at Nebraska and had a lot of success. And sometimes the learning curve can be a bit rough going from the collegiate ranks to the professional ranks. How was that transition for you last year?
I think the biggest thing was going from a team atmosphere to then an individual atmosphere. You are a team out there, so to speak. I mean, the ball reps are there to help you and all that, but they're not there every shot. They're not there to make you feel better, if that makes sense. I mean,
sure.
If you're not throwing it well, you have to be honest with yourself and with them. If you're not making consistent shots, there's no one there to tell you like, oh, it's okay, everything will be fine. It doesn't always work like that. You don't always have somebody behind you like that. You kind of have to learn to be your own biggest fan. You kind of have to be self-motivating and not make those decisions by yourself, because that's what the reps are for. But you might not have someone behind you every shot being able to tell you like, oh, I want you to throw this ball in this spot, or like for spares, if you're not sure where to stand for a spare, there's no one really there to tell you where to stand. Those are decisions that you have to make by yourself, and you have to be confident in those decisions. So I think just kind of getting that independence might be one of the biggest things. Again, you're so used to maybe like 6 people standing behind you, and then you go out on tour and there's really just one, and it's you.
Yeah, and those 6 people, someone is going to probably tell you, hey, don't worry about it, shake it off. Mm-hmm. It wasn't as bad of a shot as you thought. We're on tour. That shot was pretty bad.
Yep, no recovering. Not even in the same zip code.
It's a good opportunity to get a couple questions in. First one comes from Coach Denny. Coach, he is almost or working towards the GOAT level status. He is a head coach at Lake Orion High School, and his key question right now is, what preparations do you take kind of in the locker room when you're preparing for an event? So, prior to the event, what are you doing to get ready to compete?
Okay. I guess it depends on how far back we're talking about, because I think there's different stages to the preparation process, and everybody's different. Some people don't start thinking about it till they walk through the door of the bowling center. Some people, I think, might be like days out, because specifically on the PWBA tour, we don't see the pattern until, we get there. Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of hard to kind of think of a game plan. I mean, that's what practice is for. So I think for me personally, it starts the morning of. I start kind of thinking about, my plan as I'm getting ready, and especially as I put on, my jersey and my uniform for the day. That's where everything kind of sinks in and starts, this morning I woke up, just a normal person, but now I'm Julia Bond, the bowler.
Right.
There's kind of that mental transition that you have. And even the same thing happens when I walk through the door of a bowling alley. I have my uniform on here. I'm at work. This is my job. And then that mindset kind of changes even more. And so, where was I going? I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question?
Yes.
I'm on a tangent. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Your preparations in the basically prior to the competition beginning. So if you were in the locker room, if you had a few minutes prior to, first ball of competition or practice, or even practice day, what are you thinking about some of the preparations for that?
Okay. So I try to narrow down everything as much as possible. Having options is great. We're allowed to bring maybe like 15 bowling balls, which is great, but sometimes that's just like too many. Mm-hmm. And so I like to narrow down my options as much as I can. I don't want to be thinking about too many things at the same time. And so whenever I'm practicing, I try to see what's working and what's not. And I never like to force a bowling ball to work. If it's not happening, then it's not happening. I try to play different parts of the lane, but if one part's requiring way too much work to get the job done, then I try to kind of take that option out of play. Not completely, because you never know. The lanes are constantly changing.
Sure.
So that might be an option later. But, I just try to make it as simple as possible. And for me, I'm really into pre-shot routines. That was something that we talked about at Team USA camp, and I absolutely loved it because that's like my thing. That's like my jam. I rely on my pre-shot routine so much, and so I make sure that I have everything that I need in order, to make sure that the pre-shots, everything's going fine. Nothing's out of place, and that sounds really like crazy, that things have to be in their certain place. But I think if you watch someone long enough, you realize that they like to put maybe their rosin bag in a certain spot, or they like to stand in certain places. Maybe they won't sit there, but they'll sit there in that same spot. I'm the same way. Once I decide what chair is mine, that's my chair. I know it sounds silly, but I don't mark it. If someone sits in my chair, I'm not like, you're in my chair. But
you might go stand elsewhere and kind of give a look.
Yeah, and as soon as they get up, then it's my chair. But excuse me. Anyway, but yeah, pre-shot routine. Make sure that I'm trying to keep things as consistent as possible. I like to repeat the same things, going even the way that I get from, where I'm sitting or standing to the, to the console, to the approach. And for me that, just with bowling in general, I think consistency is key, in all things, whether that's, again, the way that you're doing your routine, the way you get up there. And I think that's honestly what I focus on most is, again, whatever's bothering me that day. In college, you had almost so many things going on. Like being a student athlete was like having, basically having like a part-time job. You were a student, that was your one job. And then you're an athlete, that's like your other job. And so when you're competing, and even high school is the same way, kids are in so many curricular activities and, they have like 8 classes during the day. And so there's so many things that they're thinking about. So I think it's really important to kind of push those aside as best as you can and just focus on bowling. And I know that's really difficult. It's easier said than done. But I think that's something that takes with just awareness and practice and just kind of, letting your mind, be where it's at. Stay present, I think, is a good way to summarize it.
Okay. And one more related to the fans. Shout out to Sip watching as well. We see you, Sip. From Chris Pulliam, do you view regionals any differently than national events? And also, do those regionals or have the regionals help you prepare for the national tour any differently?
No, I treat them exactly the same. The thing with regionals is that members who have national titles aren't allowed to do them. So you don't have the Shannon O'Keefes or the Kellys or the Missy Parkins at this event, but that doesn't by any means diminish the competition. There's plenty of people who, again, they want to join the tour. Maybe they're just unsure, but, they've been working hard like everybody else. It's just a matter of, kind of when, when do they want to jump into it? And so the competition itself isn't any different than a national event. And so I prepare for it the same way. I go through the same routine. I do everything I would the exact same way because, bowling is bowling no matter, the event. Talent doesn't, again, these are, I feel like almost like universal things with bowling is that talent doesn't necessarily dictate, how you're going to do. I think all of us can kind of attest to there's days where maybe someone who might not have the same skill set as you do, not match up, but, that's just their day and they're on a pattern that, is in their favor and, it happens. And so I think, I don't treat them any different,
Excellent.
To me, in my mind, they're the same, the end goal is still the same, to win at the end of the day. So.
Nicely done. Aaron?
Big shout out to everyone for dropping the questions in the chat. We'll get to a few of them in a little bit. We'll kind of get back to our regular scheduled program here, but Julia, obviously, we talked about a little bit earlier, winning junior gold in 2013 kind of put you on the national map for the first time, but that also allowed you to join Junior Team USA for the first time. And you've been a part of the program, whether junior or adult team, every year since 2014 now. And you've mentioned it a few times already, what are some of your favorite parts about being part of the Team USA program? And additionally, what are some of your future goals within the program?
Probably my favorite thing about being on team is just getting to know different people. For example, and I think about this very fondly, but so the year that I won junior gold, Wesley Lowe won the boys division the same year. And, Wesley's from California. I'm from Illinois. I think when you kind of think about it, there wouldn't really be any other scenario that we would meet. We're however many miles away. I'm sure maybe later in life, bowling would have brought us, in the same place. But, at the time, the chances of us ever meeting any differently, I think, were slim. And so we get to camp and, Wesley and I just like hit it off. And, he's been like my best bud, for the past, going on 8 years. And I think that's so special to have friendships like that, and again, I don't think we would have met any different way if it wasn't for bowling. And I'm really grateful for, Team USA for bringing me in contact with these people, because I think you really do make lifelong friends, through the program or even bowling in general. And so camp is definitely has my fondest memories, because those are the days, we have days where we get to know each other, get to know the coaches and really form that team bond. And I think those are really special when you can see that happening in front of you, getting to know people and building that trust, which I think is really, really special. I think a lot of people on collegiate teams can kind of agree with that trust is very important,
Absolutely.
Especially, again, when you have a national title on the line or a state title or there's a gold medal on the line. I just think those types of relationships are amazing. And again, I get kind of like emotional talking about it, because it's something I wouldn't trade, for anything. And so my goals for Team USA is, on junior team, I was fortunate enough to travel. And then with Team USA, this is my third year, but I was still in college the first two. And just with timing, the way, that life works out sometimes, there were just things that I couldn't miss. Collegiately, there was classes that I just couldn't make up. And I was like, I would love to be there with you guys, but, school is my priority right now. So unfortunately, I missed out on those, camp days where those are like my favorite days. But, this year, it's kind of funny. I've been on team for 3 years, but this last summer was my first year going to camp as an adult. So I kind of felt those jitters like being a kid again. Because, But I love that. I love that I still feel that way about it. It's not just like, oh, I'm going to Team USA camp. It's just like, I'm going to Team USA camp. and it's so fun every time. And so, but anyway, my goals is that I would love to travel, for the adult team. And it's so crazy because there's so much talent on it, to this day. And again, I've been watching them for as long as I can remember. And now as an adult, I'm finally like on the same team as the same people that I've been watching forever, and it's crazy. And so to get the opportunity to potentially travel and win a gold medal as a team, that's like the ultimate goal for me. I would love to do that.
Very nice. Very nice. Thank you for that. And you mentioned, obviously college very involved with this, and a collegiate standout at Nebraska, joining a long line of great players and great PWBA players. That freshman year, the team was able to win the title. You were named the most outstanding player. Just what was it like coming into that environment and being able to, just be a part of a team? You talked about the gold medal, essentially a national championship is the gold medal for collegiate. Just what was it like coming into that program with some of those players and, to experience that?
It was amazing. Like again, I look back at my college days and those are some of the best days, of my life thus far. And to be able to get into that program when I did, to bowl at Liz Colkin, for example, she was a senior when I was a freshman, and to be able to not only it's like to, be on the same team, at the same time, but, to be in the lineup, to be a freshman and to be in the lineup, it was amazing. And I was so fortunate. And not only that, I got to set her up. So it was like it was just so crazy.
Right. You're in a key position.
I know. And it was so crazy. And again, to be in that position, I don't think I would have done it without Liz and without Andrea and, Beth and Bree and all those other people, like my teammates, because, and again, sometimes this happens. I don't want to make generalizations, but sometimes, you have a freshman and maybe not every upperclassman reacts well to it. Again, I don't want to make generalizations. It's not always the case, but, everyone has their own expectations. There's plenty of upperclassmen that would love to be in the same position. But at Nebraska, it was nothing but support and, happiness, because we were all united with the same goal. So it didn't really matter who was where as long as we were all, in it together. And we really were. And so for me to be in that position and, I look back, I think I did it. I think I did okay. I mean, I don't know what Liz would say. Maybe she would say differently, but I like to think that I did okay. And I think that I really owe it to the girls on that team and Bill and Paul, Bill Schraub and Paul Klempa. It was a really great environment to be in. And I'm really happy that that's what I went into my freshman year. And then to, be on TV and win a national title, that's like the icing on the cake. Like, I don't think I could really ask for a better freshman year.
If you're just joining us, you are watching the PWBA Podcast live on Bowl TV. Our guest today, of course, is Julia Bond. My name is Emil Williams Jr. with Aaron Smith. And Julia, keeping on the track of Nebraska, in 2015, you were the runner-up at the Intercollegiate Singles Championships. But 2016 was kind of one of the best matches I've ever seen. And unfortunately for you, you were on the losing end of it. It was a 782. Let me make sure I say this slowly. 782 to 772, 3-game total pinfall match against Emily Eckhoff, who went on to win, and she repeated. Best match I've seen live, certainly, but just your thoughts, memories of that particular moment, although it didn't end well, but something that, not a lot of people really get to experience.
Mm-hmm. It was in Wichita, so I had a nice 4-hour drive, from Lincoln to Wichita, and so what I remember about it, and I'm really glad we're talking about it because it's not something that I actually talk about very often because even kind of now, like it never had a positive memory for me to shoot that high of a score and still lose. Like, if you look at all the other matches, in the brackets, that wins any other match.
Yeah, 100%.
Then the one that I was in, and I shot 290, and then Emily shoots 300, and it's just like, what are you going to do? And then even the next, that was game 2. We still had another game to do. And I won the last game, but I didn't win by enough. I lost by 10. And what I remember about the last game is that I had a string going, and I left a solid 8. Yep. And then, mathematically, if everything still goes the same way that it did, maybe we're talking about a different story. And so that 4-hour drive, this is where it's kind of hard for me. I cried. I cried the whole 4 hours back home because I was a little devastated. It sounds a little dramatic like now, but I was a sophomore at the time. So I was like 19, 20 years old. So a little younger than I am now, a little less experience. But, it was tough, but thinking about it now, and I actually talked about it recently, is Jasmine Mason and I went to Wisconsin. We went to the Wisconsin State high school finals, and we were having like a Q&A, and one of the questions, between Jasmine and I, he's like, which one of you has shot 290 in match play and lost? And I kind of had to be like this in front of all these kids. And I'm like, man, how did you know that? Because I don't talk about it. And you either had to be there or, to really know about it. But once I started talking about it, especially in front of younger kids, I kind of realized at that moment, it didn't have to be a negative memory. I think it just kind of goes back to, you might be bowling your best, and everything seems like it's going your way, but there might be times where you legitimately did the best you could and it just doesn't work out in your favor. And it's tough and it's hard. And like I said, like I cried the whole way home. You know, it was raining. I remember that specifically too. I had a 4-hour drive in the rain and I was crying.
Were you by yourself?
I was by myself.
Oh,
I know.
yeah,
it's hard.
I admit I did that drive this past year going from Lincoln to Wichita for Queens. I get the crying part. I would cry too. That's a rough drive by yourself.
It's flat. It's a whole lot of nothing. No offense to, Kansas or Lincoln, but it's nothing. But
I'm from Indiana, so that's all we
Yep.
got, flatland. So I'm used to that, but still.
Yep, same thing. To get to Nebraska from Illinois, it's Illinois, Iowa, Nebraska, Iowa. Same deal. But yeah, no, I think it was a moment that I think a lot of people can definitely learn from. And it's sometimes those painful moments like that, that's where you learn, the biggest lessons. I mean, I could have been really dramatic and be like, I'm done. I'm never doing this tournament ever again, and I'm done with it. And that, and that's just not the case. I didn't do it my junior year, but I did it my senior year. I made it back and almost in the same position. I almost made the TV show again. And so I think it's important to remember that single moments don't define you, or define the rest of your career. I mean, I think it's something I should talk about more, because I think a lot of people might find, unfortunately, it happens. They're going to find themselves in those positions, and, it's okay to kind of feel those emotions out. Like, someone could have told me, why are you crying? It's okay. Give yourself 20 minutes. I mean, it took me 4 hours, but, maybe take those 20 minutes to kind of feel those emotions out, and, and then think about maybe what could you done differently, if you could have done anything differently, and just kind of reflect back on it. And it doesn't have to be a memory that you like push away and never think about, because that's not good either. Someone could learn, from your own experience. And I think everybody at the end of the day grows from that.
I agree.
Mm-hmm. Excellent way to look at that, and a great learning moment and a teaching moment moving on. So, we've talked to a few other players with Nebraska ties here on the podcast. And one question we always have to ask is, obviously legendary coach Bill Straub retired prior to this last season. So for you, if you got a favorite Bill Straub story, we always love to hear him. We love the guy. So we always like to hear a good Bill story.
Specifically, a tire would be fantastic for me personally.
Oh gosh. That's tough. I mean, his work, it's colorful. Like it's pretty impressive. Like, I don't know if I have like specific stories, but I remember my freshman year. I don't know if he wore them afterwards, but he had like a pair of like red, I don't want to say velvet, but they were kind of that velvet material, but they were like sweatpants.
Maybe like velour?
Something like that. I mean, I wouldn't put it past him. So his classic combination is that he has like a shirt. It's usually a loud shirt of some sort with some kind of bright color, and then some type of accent matching sweatpants. And then his socks match some type of accent color than the shoes. So everything usually matches. And then he has a really nice hat collection too at the same time. But I don't think I have any like stories about his clothes.
Coach Straub easily could have his own apparel line.
I think he should. He has really good style. I mean, especially if you go back and look at his some of the outfits he's worn for NCAA finals. He's had some pretty good ones. He dresses pretty sharp. Can't really deny it. But I think a story, it's not like a story, but it's a moment that I think back and it just puts a smile on my face, is that if you ever seen Bill Straub in person or like at collegiate tournaments, he would carry an attaché around. And if you don't know what an attaché is, it's like a smaller briefcase, so to speak, maybe something like a lawyer would carry around, something that you would think like, oh, there's something important in there. Mm-hmm. Like you would think maybe it's our late assignments or it's, something. And then I remember one day I was complaining about being hungry, because if you're a collegiate bowler or if you have bowled in college, you know that the days are very long and you don't always have food or something to snack on. I just was like, man, I'm hungry. He's like, oh, do you want a snack? I'm like, okay. And so he goes inside his attaché. And I've never seen the inside of it up until this point. And so he opens it up, and the only contents are a book, like a fiction book, like something to read because I always wondered, there'd be times that there'd be like a lull in competition and he'd have a book. And I'm like, where'd you get the book? It just shows up. But turns out the book is in the attaché, and then he had like a trail mix, like baggie. It wasn't trail mix. It was something that Kim Straub, his wife, would make the night before. And so he had like this baggie of snacks, and he would let me snack on them, which I always thought was pretty special because, I mean, his wife made him those. He didn't have to share. But he loved to share. I mean, because, you know, and just stuff like that. I think Bill just always made you feel important and part of the team. And he was basically a dad away from home. And so a lot of those memories that I have is him kind of stepping into that role, like whether or not, like maybe you had a bad test or you just had a bad day. And something he always told us, and it always held true, is that, you know, his office door is always open. And so, you know, I would go in there, and that was something that I think we both really enjoyed about our relationship, is that we were able to have candid conversations. And they didn't even have to be they could be about nothing. They could be totally not bowling related, and he would sit there and listen to whatever I had to say. And I think those moments, honestly, are probably some of my favorites too, is where we could just sit and talk, and it didn't have to be about bowling. You know, he wasn't like a coach in that moment, and I wasn't just, you know, a player. We were just two people, you know, talking.
Sure.
And I think, you know, those are my favorite moments, along with, you know, and then and about that attaché story. Any other time I wanted a snack, like I would just ask and he would just get it. Like it something, like it just became like normal for us. And I just think it was so, like now I just think it's cute. It was just like a fun like interaction between the two of us.
That's what's up. Don't forget, folks, we will get to some of your questions. We're going to run past a little bit past an hour, and that's okay because I'm very, very much enjoying talking to Julia. I want to take a small step back, JB, if we could, for a minute. And I'm very curious on if you can describe kind of your rise, so to speak. So, you know, junior gold happens in 2013, and that ultimately leads you into Nebraska and obviously where you are today. So before that, how did you get to the level that you are now? How much work did you put in? You know, what were those days like, were the practice days and, you know, winning 2 state titles in high school, for example?
Right. So after that pro shop, you know, operator, I started taking lessons. I joined Saturday leagues, and I'm 11 at the time. So I started trying to do like tournaments that were on Saturdays. And, you know, I started off in the handicap division, and that was kind of, I think, where I got a feel for, you know, for tournaments, what it was like to be in a competition setting, like, you know, against somebody else. And it got to a point where I was losing in the handicap division, but if you looked at my scores, they were good enough for scratch. And so that was kind of my transition there, is to, you know, be a scratch bowler, you know, just, you know, total pins against total pins and all that. But I think high school definitely was a good turning point. And kind of what I said earlier is that I think I was just in the right place at the right time, meeting the right people. My high school coach was actually a bowling coach for a living. So it wasn't like he was you know, a science teacher or a history teacher, you know, being, you know, the head coach, because sometimes that happens, you know, Indeed. At schools, and it's not like that there's a lack of knowledge. It's just sometimes, you know, maybe, you know, the information's just brought to you differently, or it's very basic, and that's not bad. But for someone who's looking to elevate their game into college, they might have to go outside of that. You know, but luckily I had a high school coach that, again, was very knowledgeable with bowling. My spares definitely improved in high school. We would like do drills all the time before any practice. Like before we really could actually do anything in practice, we had to do our spare drills. And
was
so
this Marty? Sorry.
Yes. Sorry. Okay. Excuse me. Marty Miller. Yes. And I think that was the first kind of instance where I think I started to learn what being not like determined, but basically like what did it take? Like I think Marty had a really good understanding at what do we need to do as a team in order to succeed at the high school level. I think looking and like talking to other people and seeing other teams, I think his motivation was just somewhere else. I think he always expected excellence and, you know, the best performances every time he went out. And I think that really rubbed off on us. And so, you know, and then junior gold happened. That was the summer between me going into my senior year. And so that's where, I started talking to other college coaches at the time, and then ultimately making my decision to go to Nebraska. And then being in college, I think Bill was really the same way, but just at like even a higher level. And so I think I just met the right people and, unfortunately made the right choices. High school, you don't really have a choice on like what high school you go to, so to speak. But I think just by chance, just being there when Marty was there, kind of getting that hard work and, kind of like being diligent with your work and then choosing to go to Nebraska, I think it was just kind of this clear path for me. And, like I said, I was just fortunate enough to, I think, meet the right people at the right time and luckily be with people who wanted, the best for me and wanted me to succeed and be at the next level.
How did you meet Will?
I met William going into, I was in 8th grade at the time.
I love that you call him William too.
I know, it's so weird. I don't know. I like switch off between the two. So I think I say William more often. You're right. I don't know what it is. I could call him Billy, but he would hate that. That is not.
Yeah, I think you got to be from Evansville to.
That is not.
To go to, but we won't get into that conversation. No. I've known him for a long time.
So yeah, I was in 8th grade when I met William for the first time, and the original guy who I was getting lessons from the pro shop. I had a great time. I learned a lot, but I felt like I got to a certain point where I knew there was that next level, that we were talking about, and we had a mutual conversation, and we were on a complete understanding. It was just time for me to move on, to go somewhere else. And I asked my friends, one of them being Mikey Preston, who's been on junior team before. Same thing with Dominic Partapillo, who's on junior team before. John Sippage, one of our close friends, super fantastic bowler. And they all said the same thing. I was like, who do you guys go to? Like, who drills your stuff, all that stuff? And they're like, William Clark. He's up in Des Plaines. I'm like, okay. So, I trusted those guys, and, I went up there and we just like clicked. And I think it's really special to have, whether it's a coach or just, some type of mentor who just the way they present information to you, it just makes sense, or you're on the same page. Or if it doesn't make sense, they're really good at, not changing the information, but just changing the delivery so that it makes sense to you. And, William and I have just gotten along, and we've been on the same page ever since. My desire to win and get better, sometimes I feel like he's, even like above me. And so sometimes William brings it to this next like intensity level that I'm like, whoa, I need to step up my game. He's not even bowling. Like if he's this intense, I need to bring it up a level. And so I think William just brings out the best in me. And I think that's really special, to surround yourself with people who bring out the best in you and want the best for you.
Indeed. We'll swing it back to college. And I know there's a specific moment that Aaron Smith would like to talk about, and it's one of the best things I've seen. But Aaron saw it live, so we'll have Aaron talk about it a little bit.
Yes, this was arguably one of the great untold stories in kind of the history of an event, I feel. It's something I've told plenty of folks about just because I had never seen it before and probably will never see it again. But at the 2017 NCAA Championships in Baton Rouge, it was held at the facility that they built out for the USBC Women's Championship. So as part of kind of the lead into that event, they had the NCAA Championships there. So I was there as part of the PR staff, media staff, covering the event. And Nebraska and Julia were taking on Maryland Eastern Shore. It was a best-of-7 Baker match. I believe it was in the elimination bracket as well, so to keep the tournament hopes alive. And Game 7 is rolling along, and Nebraska is coasting to this victory. Y'all are going to shoot about 2:30 or something like that. Maryland Eastern Shore had some struggles. Match finishes up. I'm getting ready to post it on social that Nebraska advances, and there's just something weird in the environment. Something changed. It just wasn't a Game 7 victory. I start looking around, people are whispering, and I don't want to get too much into the details, but essentially an illegal player for Nebraska went to the practice pair, is how I remember it, and then came back into the match. So for Game 7, they ended up having to take that player's scores for those two frames, zero them out, And when the scores became, or when they added the zeros, everyone double checked, triple checked. All of a sudden, the match was tied at 160 to 160, whatever it was. Mm-hmm. So we have this, wave of emotion going on. And all of a sudden, the roll-off procedure is a half a Baker game. But Nebraska still, because they had the penalty, still has to take the, essentially bowl with 4 bowlers. And so obviously, that had to be just a whirlwind of emotions, a whirlwind time to experience. But your team pulls it off with you throwing 3 great shots in the 10th that kind of sealed up. We actually have that video. I still have that video on my phone because it was such just a crazy moment in time. So we're going to get to that so you can kind of relive that moment. And then, as part of the team, I'd love to hear, I've never had the opportunity to really talk to anyone on the team about it before. So just some of your thoughts, but let's get to that clip first if we can make it 2 for 2 on the clip sharing today.
No.
And there we go. And folks, I don't know how loud this is going to be, so just be prepared just in case.
Yeah, bear with us.
It gets loud, I think.
Well, it's not loud at all.
No.
Oh,
I know. There's a scream. That's what I'm saying. Someone scream. And the place is like empty.
Shot 2. High flush.
Oh boy.
It's the River Center right here.
River Center, yep. Baton Rouge.
Wow.
Oh boy. Bill's like,
wow.
Oh.
Wow.
Oh man. Oh boy.
Wow.
Man, I get goosebumps. Like I will go. I'm the same way. I will go through my Twitter, like go back in my timeline to find those videos because, like what I was talking about earlier, finding videos or moments where, you're bowling so well or like something good happened. Like I love watching that video because that was such a powerful moment, and like what you said before, like with that rule infraction. And the other thing that I think about is I could kind of feel that something wasn't quite right. But Bill didn't want to tell me, and I understand. As a player, he made his best choice that he didn't want to tell us exactly what was going on, and so I'm pretty sure I left 7 in my fill on my last shot. Like again, and I, looking back on it, I wouldn't want to redo that moment. It's one of my proudest moments of us as a team, but if I just left 8. Or 9, just a decent count in my fill, we wouldn't be in that situation. But I left 7. That's not a bad count, but it's not quite good count either. And so once we realized what was happening, I cried. I'll be honest. I don't think I'm a crier, but I feel like based off of this podcast, I've painted myself as a crier. But I remember, but yeah, we were kind of, we were shocked, that this was a situation that we're in. And the roll off, yeah, sure. That's fine. But to essentially have a 0, and it had to be in the same place that she was in. So it wasn't like, oh, can we like move the 0 to the first frame and then just go from there? And I was like, no, you can't do that. It had to be in our second frame. And, once we realized the situation, we stopped crying. We kind of got together, Bill said, I don't remember that was the other thing. Bill was kind of frustrated with himself that, he took full responsibility, and he's always been that way. He's never once, blamed players or anything like that. He always takes responsibility, and, he's always been super fabulous with that. And you could tell he was kind of feeling bad, based off of the situation. But, we pulled it together, and, there's kind of no time to think about anything else. So it was just like mathematically, as soon as they double, like they needed to double. Because again, our frame was a 0, so we needed to strike out like every frame, from that, the 0 was in the second frame, from that frame on. But as soon as Maryland doubled, that nothing we could have done, mattered. And so, again, Caleb Bandy is a wonderful coach, and that team was fabulous. Mm-hmm. But as it's going on, we're getting our strikes, and we're kind of looking over to see what Yumi's is doing, and one of them will get a strike, and we're like, okay, we're like holding hands. We're like, okay, is this it? And then they wouldn't get the double. I'm like, okay, we're still alive. We're still here. And we, keep going with their shots. And then finally, their anchor, Tashana, gosh, and she's so good. And I was just like, man, like, she's a great anchor. And I was just like, man, so she gets the first one. And so then that's where I had to get my first one. And you could see that late 10 pin because like first my heart sank, and then it like went up to my throat because it fell back. It's not like it like got sucked in or anything. It like fell back. So it was so last minute. But anyway, get through that. And so she's about to throw her second shot, and you can see it in the video. Unfortunately for their team, fortunately for us, she splits. And so again, that just because she didn't double doesn't mean that, I still had to strike. And so, but yeah, anyway, so get all three. But it was a roller coaster of emotions. It was, crazy because, again, I don't think anyone's ever been in that situation. And, for us, for our you always want to do it for your seniors. If this is, I couldn't imagine, like, if this is the way we were going to go out. That's just rough. But, we get through it. And then even the next match against Vanderbilt, that was a tough match. And, I thought that match was crazy because we ended up tying at some point again. So we got like half points. It was like 2.5 to 2.5. And, same thing. Like there's another situation where I had to strike in a 10th frame, get through Vanderbilt, to make it onto the TV show when, earlier that day we were doing this crazy roll off. And then if you told me then like, oh, you're going to make it to the TV show, I'd be like, are you sure? Because like the odds don't seem very good. But you can even tell, like, I get so excited talking about that moment because it was just so crazy. And to most importantly, to have a team rally together like that, you couldn't have asked, for anything better. At the end of the day, we still fell to McKendree and that sucked. But again, to even get there, for that to be where we started and then to make it to TV show the next day, you can only ask for a chance, really, at the end of the day. And the fact that we rallied together and pushed through that moment together to, and then make it past another team to then get on TV, Cinderella story would have been great to win.
Yeah.
To win. But, I still love that moment. It's probably my favorite collegiate moment. It was stressful as can be, but it was really cool. I've loved every team that I've been on, but that was definitely also another special team for me.
Well, thank you. This has been an opportunity for a long time. I've been waiting to talk to someone about this, and this presented the perfect opportunity to do that. So thank you for going into that, Emil. We got to get like a 6-part series going on this.
We might have to. We could do a special 30 for 30 on that very moment and talk to everyone involved.
It was great.
All right, JB, I want to ask you a couple questions from the fans, and then we'll wrap it up with a couple of our own questions. Again, from Coach Denny. Really talking about the mental game. So do you study, practice any mental game techniques or examples that you would recommend to, high school team, for example?
Mm-hmm. I think really the ultimate classic book would be The Inner Game of Tennis. I think everybody should read that book. I know a lot of people have read it. And if you have read it, read it again, because maybe some of that information didn't stick, or maybe you missed something the first time that, maybe you can implement. But I'm a big reader, so I'm always in the books. Another book that I really, really enjoyed is called Relentless. And it's Wesley Lowe recommended it to me. And I believe it's a book that Wichita State, they were required to read for their classroom stuff.
Oh, you're giving out secrets.
You're right. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
But anyway, I guess we're all in this together. So, Relentless, I think, is a really, really great book. Kind of in that book, it kind of talks about other athletes, like secrets and stuff. So
how about that?
Secrets for everybody.
That's a secret book, then. Okay.
Yeah. Stuff like that. I think it was like a week and a half ago. Dr. Dean had a free web seminar talking about mental games. So if you can, not get in contact, but Dr. Dean and other sports psychologists, I really loved when teams brought in sports psychologists to kind of talk about things as a group or, individuals, because I think it's nice to have a third party there to kind of, again, be the outside force, talking to you. And I feel like any time, especially my freshman year, when we had a sports psychologist come in and talk to us, that was really cool. And then we ended up winning that year. And I think that kind of happens to a lot of teams. I think that really has an advantage when you can talk to somebody like that. I think it kind of gives you an edge over other teams if you can bring somebody in like that, or maybe, I don't want to say require, but maybe find some type of like, sports psychologist mental health book and kind of read that as a team and maybe bookmark and talk about them as a group, just kind of, right. I mean, and I kind of wish that we did more stuff like that. So I think Wichita State, I mean, they're another powerhouse school. I think they're on to something, with having classroom work like that, stuff like that. I think it's great.
I'm sorry, my bad.
No, that's okay.
Chris asked, did any when we were talking about the segment in regards to who you looked up to, who you're looking at from a physical game, mental game perspective, he asked, did any of the players become mentors to you in your first season? So anyone that reached out to lend a helping hand or provide some quality advice at some point?
I think I would still say the same people as before. There were times where Shannon O'Keefe, I believe I made top 12. And so we were going through that kind of, you play everybody once type of thing. Mm-hmm. And I think I was struggling a little bit, and Shannon was there to give me some advice. And that's what's so cool about her. I think that's what's so cool about all the other ladies is that, she was in a great position. And I can't remember if Shannon O'Keefe won that tournament, but like she won 5, so I know. So the chances of
probably
she probably did win. But anyway, she's in a really good position, but she's still taking the time to, to help me. And I mean, I wasn't in that great position. I might have been like the 12th person or maybe 10th, but that didn't matter to her. She still took time to maybe help me get into a better part of the lane. And I just think that's so cool. Again, that she took the time out of, her own thing to just, give me a tip. I thought that was super cool of her. And then same thing with Kelly Kulick. There was a tournament where I did so bad. Like I did really, really bad. And I was, emotionally holding on by a thread. And Kelly saw that and she came over to me and she looked me in the eye and she says, like, it's okay. Like to feel what you're feeling. Like there was no judgment at all. Like, I mean, I felt like an emotional mess, and I was just like, man, everyone probably thinks I'm crazy. I mean, it's just bowling, but in that moment it didn't feel like bowling. And in that moment, Kelly like understood what I was going through, and she didn't make me feel bad for, how emotionally of a wreck I was. And, she wasn't judging me based off of what I thought was my bad performance. Like she was just there to just tell me that it was okay. And that spoke volumes to me, because anyone could have just like let me get on with my, emotional wreck, but she took the time to come over and tell me it was okay. And then everything felt okay. So I thought that was really special of her to do. So again, I think my answer stays the same for both of them, is that Shannon O'Keefe and Kelly Kulick have really been really cool to me.
And then finally from Coach Denny, sorry, Aaron, I'll get to that 1 second.
No worries.
Just basically describe a week of as a college bowler, because he asked how many hours per week basically kind of do you spend bowling. I think in college he's got several athletes that have either gone on to college or want to certainly get to that level from high school. So what's a normal week like?
Right. So I can only speak from the women, Nebraska's women team, because I know, and that's a really good question to ask when you go on your visits, is what does practice look like? That was something that was important to me, was, some people do really well in a structured environment. That would be like your Nebraskas or your Wichitas or your Webbers. I think those are more of your structured programs. In McHenry too, having like, structured practices, whereas other schools, maybe they don't practice as much during the week. Not saying that they're not, dedicated, but it's just different schedules. And there's hours involved. Some teams choose to spend maybe more time in the weight room than on the lanes. And so every school is different. So I think that's a really important question to ask is, if you have an opportunity to watch a practice. You can see maybe if that'll be good for you, maybe it won't. So from Nebraska's point of view, we practiced Monday to Friday from 2 to 5 every day. And then sometimes we would have a Saturday practice from 10 to noon. I don't remember. It wasn't as long as like a normal week. And so yeah, we basically pretty much practiced every day. And so, and like I said, I think other NCAA schools maybe practice Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Again, everybody's different.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how much we did.
Awesome.
So, and then Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we would be in the weight room. So that's how kind of like our time was split, like a little bit. So again, every school is different. So I think it's really important to ask, like whatever school you're interested, what do their schedules look like? Or if you can watch a practice, definitely watch a practice. Or other schools, NCAA, you can't practice with the team, but in other divisions, you can practice with them. So I think if you have the opportunity to do that, you should really jump on it.
Thank you.
Definitely another good question to ask for those up-and-comers looking at collegiate bowling, NCAA, specifically on the women's side, NAIA, club sports, kind of all that to definitely consider. Kind of getting back into the collegiate aspect of it, you talked about being a student athlete, and as a student, you studied forensic biology. So I'm definitely curious because that's something, you don't hear a ton of out there. How did you get interested in that? And the follow-up after that is, how accurate are CSI
Oh boy.
shows?
Okay. So I think where it starts back in high school. I think I've always had a love for biology. Like science in general has always been one of my favorite subjects. And my high school was really cool in the fact that we actually had a genetics class. It was an elective, but you could still take it. And I think that's kind of where my love for just DNA in general started. I think DNA is super cool. Like, it sounds really lame, but it's this tiny microscopic molecule that makes me, and you, and you. And I just think it's so cool. And there's so many different things that we could do. And there's so many different things we don't even know about it. But all I knew is that, like, I want to work with DNA. I don't know how, but I just know. And so when I went to Nebraska, again, I wanted to see what their biology program was like, and it was great. But I also saw that they had a forensics track, and this is where I was just like, oh, I don't know if forensics is the way that I want to go. Like, I didn't want to like pigeonhole myself into a major that I wasn't 100% sure about. And so for the first like 2.5 years, I was just a biological science major with maybe kind of the idea of like going into forensics. I had a criminal justice minor because forensics wasn't offered as a minor. It was only a major. And the more I thought about it, the more it just made sense. I was like, I should be a forensic biology major. Like, I looked at the classes I would be taking, and I was just like, I think it would be silly if I didn't take this opportunity and actually gain the lab experience. And so I ended up switching, and luckily it wasn't like a big deal. A lot of the sciences were still the same. I just had to catch up on my forensics classes, and I think maybe take physics. Or maybe I always had to take physics. I don't quite remember, but it wasn't a big deal for me to switch. And so I was just like, let me just do it, and that's how I got into forensics. And I think forensics in general is because I'm okay with being more of like a behind the scenes type of work. Like, I like the idea of taking a bunch of sciences and getting information, all of them, in order to like solve a puzzle or like a problem. And I just think that's really, really cool. And also the idea is that even though you're kind of doing the behind the scenes lab work, I still feel like you're still helping somebody, whether that's, I don't want to get too, macabre or anything like that, but whether it's like, a homicide or a suicide or like an accident, like sometimes people aren't there to tell their stories. And I think forensics is a way to give, victims or people kind of their stories back, and in order to, put, bad people away. Or even the other way, sometimes good people are put in jail that shouldn't be there. And so kind of forensics and DNA works the other way. And so I think it's really powerful, and, in some way helping the community that I don't have to be at the forefront. I can kind of like just be in my lab and, just do my little work.
Wow.
Yeah. And then you asked about CSI. CSI isn't always as accurate as we would like it to be. but there's some really good things about it. But I think, again, it's a TV show. We're trying to fit it in like a 30-minute like frame. So a lot of steps get bypassed. Like I wish it took like a day and a half to get results. And unfortunately, that's not always the case. So I think things are often expedited on TV than it is in real life. And that's actually something that's real. It's like the Csi Effect is like what we call it, is that unfortunately, like nowadays when you have a crime and you have a jury, juries expect, evidence in like a day and everything to be so clear cut. And like, it's not always like that. Unfortunately, things get messy and things aren't always, as straightforward as we like. And so they expect all this cold, hard evidence. And sometimes you don't always have it. So again, CSI is not a bad reference, but it's not, TV is not always reality.
Gotcha. I will take David Caruso now with a grain of salt moving
That's
forward.
right. Dial it down, Aaron. Dial it down.
All right.
Nicely done. Excellent answer. Really, it really was. It's incredible. Incredible. Are you into the field yet since you've obviously graduated? So I know you mentioned you've been working, obviously. That's your work desk. So are you into the field that you want to be in yet, or are you still working to that point?
No, not quite. I'm still working on it. The way that I see it, I mean, this is just from my personal perspective, is that it would just be really difficult for me to do my bowling career and be a DNA analyst at the same time. The hours are still like a 9 to 5. And for me to be gone, because I would love to do the tour full time. And so I wouldn't be able to really do either full time. And forensics isn't really a part-time job. I can't just, come in only on certain days. I would, and the way that I see it is that I love both things so much that I want to do them both to the best of my ability. And I just don't think I'd be able to split myself and the time that I have during the day to both equally as I would like. And so kind of the way that I'm going about it now is that I'm focusing a lot on my bowling career because I'm young and I have the support and, that's just what I want to do right now. Whereas, if bowling doesn't pan out the way that I want, then, I have a really cool degree. And even if forensics doesn't work out, I still have a lot of background in biology and chemistry and biochemistry. And so I think that's kind of what I plan later in life. And again, I'm young. I could change. I could change my plan. I feel like it's a very young person sentiment.
The joys of being young.
Yeah. So, but right now, a lot of what I do is involved, in bowling. Like I had a part-time job, in Lincoln that was, bowling related. And then even here back in Aurora, same thing, had a part-time job, very bowling related. So I feel like bowling itself is what encompasses a lot of my life right now, which again, I wouldn't have it any other day. In my perfect world, I would just bowl for the rest of my life.
Well, there you go. I hope we can watch you do that. Honestly, if you want to save a life in the meantime or when you can, that's definitely okay as well.
Yeah, I feel this does offer for the kids listening out there. If you're going to do a bowl with the pros later on, and Julia's in the field, and you got some science homework, little bio, little chem, do most of it, but double check. She'll double check some stuff for you, maybe. So
yeah, I did that to a girl. Like my high school team that I was like a kind of like an assistant, more like a volunteer. And one of the girls, she just kind of had a hard practice, and we talked for a little bit. I was like, is everything okay? Like, was school okay? And she's like, actually, I have this test coming up that I'm like. She didn't really feel prepared for it. I'm like, oh, what is it on? It was about DNA and RNA. And I was like, I got you. So, but no, so yeah, I mean, yeah, if you want to talk about DNA or forensics or again, maybe on the weirder side, I mean, I don't want to be like creepy, but like, serial killers, they're kind of interesting. That's, stuff that we talk about in class. So got any questions? I'm your person.
I now know that we both enjoy forensic files, but for completely different reasons.
I know. That's a good show. That's a real show. Forensic Files. That's where you have your real cases and your real science. So if you really want to watch like a crime or a science show, Forensic Files is definitely your go-to.
I enjoy the host of that show. I don't know his name, but
I don't know either.
I just want to be a host of a show like that now and present information in the way that he presents it. Aaron, you ready for the final question?
I am. And once again, thanks to everyone from Bolt TV for joining us and the questions, the live broadcast. We pulled it off, so we'll finish it with our final question. Besides catching up on Forensic Files now, Julia, what are your binge watch recommendations?
Oh gosh, man, that's tough because other than Forensic Files, I'm not really a big TV show person. I'm more of like a movie buff. Like I like to just have everything laid out in like 2 hours and then that be it.
Okay.
So that's hard. Well, actually, I haven't finished the show, but I really enjoy it right now. Is Money Heist.
Money Heist.
Okay. I thought that was really good. It's a little different. I think it takes place in Spain, but it's like dubbed over, so it doesn't. So the subtitles and the mouths don't quite move at the same time. But anyway, it's really cool. I haven't.
That
finished
happens
it.
to us sometimes.
I know.
Too.
Yeah. so that show's been really cool, but I'll be honest with you. Again, I'm not really answering the question. This is the best I got. I'm sorry. But I got into this weird kind of... So first, Tom Hanks, just kind of fun fact about myself. Tom Hanks is my favorite actor.
Okay.
I think he's great. Another time, like, I love his movies. And Netflix, it was recently let out on Netflix. It's called The Road to Perdition.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was really good. I have never heard of it, and I watched it.
It's a good movie.
Oh, it was so great. I cried at the end. Like, it was so good. Because, like, Tom Hanks is known as, like, America's dad. And so this movie, he's, like, kind of different. He's not quite the Tom Hanks that we know. And kind of like, spoiler, it's more of, like, a gangster kind of movie. Mm-hmm. And that's never really been my thing. But after I watched that movie, I kind of got into this gangster, like, genre of, like, movies. Because then I watched The Irishman.
Great
and
movie.
I was like... Right, and I was like, man, this is good. And then for some reason, instead of Tom Hanks, it switched to Robert De Niro. So I went on this Robert De Niro binge. Which,
he can go for a while too.
I know. I mean, he was great, but I mean, I've always known he was great, but I've never. So I watched The Irishman, and then I watched Taxi, and then I watched Casino.
Oh, there we go.
I was like, where have I been? Like. So I went on a Robert De Niro binge. So
to be fair, some of those movies are a bit older, so you just may not have been on Earth.
True, very true. And then the next on my list for Robert De Niro is A Bronx Tale.
Oh man!
Oh,
wow!
I know.
JB, you hitting them, man. You are hitting them today.
So. It's not really a good recommendation, but Robert De Niro's always been good. We've known that, but all the movies I just said, if you've never seen it before, or if you really want to get to know Robert De Niro better, that would be my guess. Those would be my suggestions.
Wow,
of good movies that I've watched recently.
Nicely done.
Yeah.
Shout out to Casino. That's Vegas will be back soon.
Yes,
Miss Vegas.
Wow. Any final thoughts, Mr. Smith?
Wow, this was super fun. We definitely enjoyed the opportunity, Julia, to get you for. We originally planned on about an hour or
one day we'll get to an hour.
Getting closer to an hour and a half, but we definitely appreciate the time. This was super fun, and obviously we're looking forward to seeing you back on the lanes, hopefully sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I hope so too. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks, JB. I want to thank everyone in the chat who joined us. I see my man Daniel checking in. Coach Denny, you couldn't get that last question in, but hopefully some of Julia's answers will take to effect for your high school team. Thanks to Chris Alexander, the Clarks, the Silers, SIP, everybody watching. We appreciate you. Episode 10 is coming up on Friday at 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern time, and we will talk with Sydney Brummett, another young player, of course, on Team USA, and see how she's doing amongst what we have going on today. So for Julia Bond, for Aaron Smith, my name is Emil Williams Jr. We'll see you next time on Bowl TV. This has been the PWBA Podcast. Take care, folks.